The lacrosse community is mourning right now because of the tragic news coming out of Marquette University. Two players on the men's lacrosse team, Noah and Scott, were tragically killed in a car accident just this past weekend on Friday night. And it's heartbreaking news. Our thoughts are with the entire Marquette men's lacrosse family, their families, and everybody that was involved, and everybody who knew these two phenomenal people. Phenomenal lacrosse players who have left an impact on our sport and on the Marquette men's lacrosse program, and honestly, the lacrosse community on the whole.
Yeah, Charlotte, we were talking about it this weekend when we heard the tragic news, and it just didn't feel right, on a Tuesday night. We're a show that we talk lacrosse with you guys every week, and obviously this has been on everybody's mind, and, we just feel absolutely horrible for what has happened. And like you said, Charlotte, just want to send our thoughts and prayers to Marquette and Noah and Scott's families. And obviously there's no easy transition, right? Like, we still want to have a quote unquote normal show, but it's hard when obviously this has been on everyone's minds and hearts for the last few days. And the one thing that I keep coming back to is lacrosse. The origin of it, right, is rooted in the Native American as a medicine game. And you just have to hope that the entire lacrosse community can move on from this by knowing that Scott and Noah love the game of lacrosse, and it'll be a healing game, a medicine game for everybody going forward, and their memories will be carried on, obviously, throughout the rest of Marquette's program history. So let's try and move on from this. No easy transition, and have a normal conversation as best we can on this Tuesday night.
North stings the corner. You know it's coming. You still can't stop it.
Welcome, everybody, to the show this week. We are so glad to be here with you guys on a Tuesday night. Again, this is the place where you get all your lacrosse news. I'm Charlotte North, and that is ESPN's Jay Alter. We love coming here every Tuesday night to meet with you guys, to chat with you guys, and to talk about what's going on in the lacrosse world. And we got a big week on deck because it is officially PLL Championship week, and we are here to break down that matchup for you guys. Jay, give me your thoughts.
Well, look, it's finally here, right? All summer, we had a great regular season, and it felt like, at least for me calling these games, that New York and Denver had started to separate themselves kind of the midway point in the season and certainly down the stretch, and then that's who we get in our championship game. So Denver Outlaws taking on the New York Atlas. It's 12:30 Sunday on ABC. We got the two best teams. This does not always happen in sports. Certainly doesn't always happen in the sport of lacrosse. I feel like for the lacrosse fan, it's a huge win because you are really getting the best of the best, not just the two best teams, but I think just the best players right now. You look at Denver with Brennan O'Neill and Pat Cavanaugh, dynamic duo. And then for New York, it's been Jeff Teat and Connor Schellenberger that's emerged as a dynamic duo. So you're getting the best players, the best teams. It's everything you want in a championship game for two franchises that have never won a PLL championship.
Yeah, I mean, a first-time winner will be on tap for Sunday's game. And you mentioned the season on the whole. I feel like we talked about all summer long, like there was so much parity. There were so many one-goal games. There were so many quote-unquote upsets or teams that shouldn't have made the playoffs that did make the playoffs. And now we've ended up with the top two seeds, the first in the East and the first in the West. And not to mention, when these two teams met in the regular season, it was Denver's homecoming week, and they were out, at that beautiful facility at Denver, and it was a one-goal game. I mean, Denver won 13-12, and it was a back-and-forth game. Some called it the game of the year. There were endless highlights when you mentioned star power on both rosters, endless highlights, and it's not just from the offensive threats that they have, like Brennan O'Neill, Pat Cavanaugh on the Denver side, or Connor Schellenberger, Xander Dixon, Jeff Teat, just to name a few on the New York side. It was, long stick midfielders scoring 2-point goals. It was the battle of the goalies, which is almost an even better battle than what's going on the offensive side of the ball for both these teams, with Liam Entenmann for New York, and then Logan McNaney for Denver, a rookie. So, it's going to be unbelievable. And I can't wait to watch.
Well, you think about what McNaney and Entenmann did throughout their collegiate careers. It just felt like they were always in the championship game when they played for Notre Dame and Maryland, respectfully. And now they find themselves in a PLL championship against one another in the first time on the professional stage. Look, if you're asking me goalies, right, let me make the case for New York, because I think Entenmann has the championship pedigree, the edge in goal. So if Atlas wins, right, I think Liam Entenmann's probably making 15-plus saves, standing on his head, taking out Denver's top weapons. I just don't know. I think there might be too much offensive firepower for the Outlaws, because it's not just Kavanaugh and O'Neill. I mean, Bernhardt has emerged. He's gone from the NFL to the PLL and made a transition where he's getting better each week. I just don't. Denver, to me, Charlotte, it kind of reminds me of doing the WLL Champ Series with your Boston Guard team. Like, you didn't need to score 10 goals for the Guard to win. You had so much offensive firepower around you. It's kind of how I feel about Denver. Like, they don't need Brendan O'Neill to score 8 goals in this game, right? Because it's a balanced offense with so much firepower all over the field.
And you got balance on the left side with Brendan O'Neill and the right side. And then you have, not to mention the 4 Tewaaraton winners. So you have Jared Bernhardt, you have Pat Kavanaugh, you have Brendan O'Neill. And then you have Logan Wisnauskas, who's also a lefty, but Pat Kavanaugh can go either way, right or left. And no, I agree with you. There's so much offensive firepower. And when they played in the regular season, none of these 4 players had an unbelievable, monstrous game. Right. Pat Kavanaugh had 0 points that day. But there were so many people who can step up and so many ways that these 4 players open up the offense that might not be accounted for in the stat sheet. And that happens every game. You saw Brendan O'Neill goes off for 6 points in the semifinal game that they just won this past weekend, but it could be anybody's day.
By the way, I've got to correct you. A couple of minutes ago, you said the regular season meeting was the game of the year.
Oh, boy.
Absolutely not. I called the game of the It was in Fairfield. Outlaws Cannons, 18-17
I do
final.
remember this.
That game was nuts.
The Brendan O'Neill between the legs, the Pat Kavanaugh behind the back. I mean, there's a case for both, but when you're talking top 2 teams in the league going head to head and it coming down to the wire, I would go with that regular season matchup between Denver and New York. You've
played in championship games. And everyone listening, if you've played in a championship game, it's just different, right? It's just, all games are not created equal. Yeah. Championship games are just different. What separates 2 amazing teams on a championship stage? Fine margins. How do you separate yourself and give yourself that extra edge to win?
Well, you love this environment and you love this stage as a player and as an athlete because it's out there for you to go and take. It's out there for you and your team to come together and play the best, most complete game that you can. Obviously, you're going to make mistakes. You kind of have to be okay with that and understand that, the game is, going to go, it's going to go up, it's going to go down. Other team's going to go on a run. You're not going to hold them scoreless. But if you're able to stay present and do all of the little things over the course of a 60-minute game, you're probably going to come out on top. But the energy, the atmosphere, the competitive fire, like those are the moments that you work all off season for to get to this point. And for these 2 teams, I feel like it's going to be a physical matchup. It's going to be one with, some crazy celebrations, a lot of energy, maybe some brawls here and there because of, the rivalry that they've kind of started being, the top of the East and the top of the West. I really think it's going to be a close game. But again, if you guys watching, you watched the US Open this past week or weekend.
How great was that?
Like, talk about pressure on the biggest stage in sports. Like, that is what you have in a championship setting. That's what these 2 teams in the PLL have coming their way this Sunday at Red Bull Arena in New Jersey. And, not to mention they played the semifinal over a week ago. So there's a big chunk of time between when they walked off that field with a win in the semifinal before they take the field on Championship Sunday on September 14th. So, the pressure starts to build. There's a lot of chatter. There's a lot of noise. You got to do your best to stay focused, stay locked in, similar to what those tennis players did this past weekend at the US Open. And you gotta play your game. You don't have to do anything more or anything less than what you are used to doing, because that is what got you to that point. You got to trust in your teammates and understand, people will make mistakes, but if you can channel, those nerves into energy, that's where championships are made.
So I told you why Denver should win with all their offensive firepower, right? If that all shows up, I think they are the more talented team on paper offensively. Now, let me tell you why I think they could have no shot against New York. They haven't played a ton of lacrosse, Charlotte.
Yes,
they had a bye the
true.
final week of the regular season in Boston. They missed that weekend. Mm-hmm. Then they had a bye in the quarterfinal round. As you just mentioned, then there's a week off in between the semifinals and the finals. So they have only played one game in 6 weeks. Think about that. One game in 6 weeks. So how can you be sharp at your peak when you just haven't played that much lacrosse? And obviously, New York, being the 1 seed as well, also missed those weeks, but they played in Boston, so they've got a slight edge there to stay sharp. So if Denver loses, I think it's because they just might not be at their top. They might not be peaking at the right time.
Yeah, or to play devil's advocate, they had more time to recover from a long regular season, maybe get fully healthy if players are banged up. But I see your point, and both teams did practice in that first round of the playoffs, right, that they got the bye from being that top seed in their conference.
As a player, what helps you more? Rest, recovery, or just staying in a groove?
Oh, it's hard because you want to get to that moment. I guarantee the players that are playing on Sunday, they want to just get to Sunday morning where they're going out to warm up, because there's so much buildup, and the buildup can heighten your nerves at times. And, you just have so much anticipation of the moment. You're visualizing what it's going to look like, what it's going to feel like. And you just want to get out there and play, because once, the first whistle goes and a couple of plays are down, then you take a deep breath and you settle into the game. So I don't know if, a ton of rest, like you mentioned, that both teams have had is the best for a team or for a player. Mm-hmm. I think, a little bit of rest in between, obviously, playing on back-to-back days or a couple days in between, but I think a week is enough time. You don't need any more than that to really get ready and get in the right mindset for another game.
Make the case for New York. Well, if New York wins, what goes right?
There was a play this past semifinal round by goalie Liam Entenmann on New York, and we've talked about him all season. He's been making a case for goalie of the year. He was 69% in the semifinal win over the Water Dogs with 18 saves, and I feel like he literally won them that game. And we've said that a number of times this season, and I just feel like he is tailor-made for the PLL because of the pace of play, because of the volume of shots that he's seeing, the types of shots that he's seeing. He's so athletic, and he's doing things that are ridiculous to watch. You see him completely out of position. You see a rebound come off of him, and you're thinking, oh, it's an easy doorstep garbage goal for the other team. But he's always there somehow, some way. And I don't know. Even though you've mentioned all the offensive talent that Denver has, I don't know if Liam Entenmann's going to be under 16, 17, 18 saves. He's on a hot streak, and I feel like he's the best goalie right now in the PLL.
I agree. It's tough to make an argument against Liam Entenmann. I think the storyline that intrigues me the most and has the most drama is, does Trevor Baptiste,
I was gonna say,
win his first PLL championship by ripping out Denver lacrosse fans' heart? Because there's so many Outlaw fans that overlap as Pioneer fans for college lacrosse.
Yeah,
Trevor Baptiste put Denver lacrosse on the map.
He won a national championship there.
Yeah, no one even knew they played lacrosse out in Denver until Trevor Baptiste showed up and won a national championship. So does this guy who gave Denver lacrosse fans so much joy rip their heart out and just dominate the face-off X and win a championship? That would be, for me, if I'm a script writer, the script that I write.
He was 50% in the regular season matchup between these two. I mean, I wouldn't call it his best outing, but I mean, if anyone deserves a championship at the professional level, I think it's Trevor. He's actually the only member of the current New York Atlas that was a part of the first ever Atlas team right now. So, I mean, how cool would it be, awesome to win the first PLL championship for that organization, and to do it in a arena that is so, pretty much in New York, in the state of New York, and to have, somewhat of a home crowd, I would assume, that's going to be pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. So ABC, 12:30, Red Bull Arena, like you mentioned, Charlotte. Don't want to miss it, and we will recap it for you on the Lacrosse Rundown, because really that is the last competitive lacrosse game for a little while as we get into what is really about training, preparation, practice, forming your culture, forming what's going to be really your building block for a competitive spring and summer. And we've gotten a lot of feedback and a great response, by the way, on our episode about recruiting. You guys really enjoyed that. We really enjoyed that. And we had a couple of questions come in on fall ball. And Charlotte, you've gone through it. And I think it's kind of like, even for me, a mystery. Like you hear, oh, fall ball, but take us inside. Like, what are coaches and players doing in the months of September, October, November that readies them for when the lights come on in the new year?
I mean, it's arguably the most important time of the year if you're a lacrosse player, a program, a team, an organization, no matter what level you're playing at. The fall is the time to grow and to develop and to build chemistry. And people, maybe some of you guys watching, you're like, yeah, but I love playing in games and I love competing and I love chasing a championship. And that's what you sign up for as an athlete. That's what you want to do. That's what you want to go out and compete for alongside your teammates. But where the real championship type of team is born and is nurtured and developed and it all happens in the fall. And so, for all of you young players or anyone in college right now that's embarking on their fall ball season, I think the coolest part about it is that you have to remain patient because chemistry takes time. You're going into early morning lifts. You're going into conditioning. You're going into work sessions. Then you're going into stick work sessions. You're going into practices where you're not really getting into 7-on-7 and scout team. You're working on the nuances of the sport. You're working on smaller sided tactics. You're really working on your fundamentals of 1v1 offense or 1v1 defense. Maybe you're playing on a 2-man style offense and you're working on your picks and your rolls and your communication and your timing. Or on defense, you're working on your slide packages in a 3-on-3 or a 5-on-5 situation. So while some people may think, it's a slow build, it's not as exciting, it's not as fun, maybe you get a couple scrimmages in the fall too, but most of it is, the process and the journey from September to December, really. And so I would encourage you guys to buy into that and understand that, it's okay if it takes time. It's okay if it's frustrating or maybe it seems boring in the beginning. Like that is where you can win each day and start to stack, a little bit of progress on top of one another. And you're going to see the most benefit when you do take the field in February. But if you go through the motions and you're not really buying into what your coaches are putting you through, there is a reason for everything that you're doing. And so if you're bringing the same attitude you would to a rivalry game against, the team you hate the most, the team you want to beat the most, you got to bring that same attitude when you're tackling an early morning workout or an individual training session, or you're out shooting with a teammate. It's those moments where you really, really develop and you can then embark on chasing down your goals without them being too far out of reach.
Yeah, I mean, just reflecting on our conversations with North Carolina head coach Jenny Levy, national champions, undefeated season on the women's side.
Yeah.
She told us in the fall, she's like, I don't know how good we're going to be, because they really installed that heavy press on defense, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, we're fouling, we look unorganized, and you're allowed to go through those growing pains, because then they looked unbeatable and unstoppable, and the pressure was suffocating. But it didn't just they didn't just show up in February and it all clicked, right? They went through, as you said, growing pains when you're installing something new with new players and you're coming together. And it's the stuff behind the scenes now that you'll see on the field when the lights come on. And I'm just curious from your perspective, Charlotte, like transferring in too. Like we hear transfer portal, blah, blah, blah. You did that transition from Duke to Boston College. I have to imagine the fall was so vital for you coming into a new program, learning new teammates, a new system. Like, how invaluable was that transition this time of year?
Oh my gosh, it's incredible, because you're given so much time, 5-6 days a week, and then whatever you're doing away from the coaches and on your own time with your teammates, like that is where you start to build those connections and build those relationships with your teammates, build the trust with each other, and learn what they need from you and vice versa. And that doesn't just happen when you take the field in preseason and you're preparing for an opponent. You got to build that now, so that when you get to those moments in January and February, you can start working on, the bigger things, how your offense is going to flow, adjustments in game, man versus the zone defense, all those, the draw team, bigger things that, maybe you want to set your sights on, instead of, working through trusting a teammate or understanding what kind of communication they prefer. And, especially as a freshman or as a transfer, like you mentioned, like that takes so much time, and you're allowed to fail at that in the fall. Like you're learning, you're growing, you're understanding things every day. You're going home in your dorm and you're writing down something your coach said that day that you needed to be better at, or something that you learned from a teammate, or something you want to tackle on Monday of the following week, because you didn't feel good about it the past week in October or November. And I think that's what's really, really cool about the fall. And like head coach Jenny Levy said, that you just mentioned, I think coaches are also, and players, allowed to have those panic moments for a split second, because you start to stress, you start to worry, you start to think, what's our future going to look like? What's this season going to look like? And that's very normal, because lacrosse is a spring sport. It's all a slow build up to the spring. It's very normal, but then you kind of have to ground yourself in, your team is buying into the process. They're working as hard as they can every day, and they're getting better at the little things. And that's all that matters, day in and day out. And then by the time you get to the field in January, you're starting to see the pieces come together and the chemistry is there.
Yeah, it's also your first impression from seeing them in the spring and now in the fall, like who really upped their level in the summer. Like, was there a moment for you once where you come back for the fall and you knew a teammate of yours was good, and then they come back and it's like, whoa, like they just raised that bar?
Yeah, I would go back to, after the COVID summer where, everyone was kind of on their own. We would get on team Zooms twice a week, and we would connect with each other on FaceTime and whatnot, and check in with what workouts we were doing, what kind of shooting routines, what kind of footwork drills, all the little things that we were doing on our own to get ready to, hopefully, we didn't know at that point, but hopefully go back in the fall and start our journey as the next year's team. Coming in that September, we were all wearing masks. We were all training, outside together, and just to see how much everyone had bought in to doing whatever it took, even though everyone was on their own, even though we didn't all have access to a gym, everyone got creative. Everyone figured out a way to get it done. And that's, that year ended in a championship. And I think a lot of it, yes, we got better every single game and every single week of the season. But you go back to these moments, you go back to the summer, you go back to the September, the October, November days where everyone is doing whatever it will take to get better. And that includes the summer. You notice it right when people arrive on campus and you're in your first workout, or you're in your run test, or you're in your first practice. You can tell who has sacrificed a ton to be better for the sake of the team. And you can know right away, but it is really, really a time of growth, and a time of, it's you and your team and your coaches, and that's it. And you get to just go on the journey together. You get to get through those early morning conditioning sessions where you feel like you may pass out. That's normal. That's normal. But you think about that extra 300 or that extra sprint, like that may result in an extra stop on defense, or an extra transition goal in the spring, and that is something that can really get you through.
That's awesome insight, Charlotte, and I hope that helps some of you as you embark on your fall ball journeys. We want to hear from you. So if you've got a comment about a topic you want us to talk about this fall, or a player or a coach or someone not even affiliated with lacrosse right now, just dump a name in, give us a suggestion. We want to hear from you. What do you want to hear discussed here on the Lacrosse Rundown?
Yeah, we're going to have some awesome guests for you guys throughout the course of the fall, and previewing some teams, maybe some different news in the college lacrosse world, the professional lacrosse world, and of course, international. We have the Atlas Cup coming up at the end of September for Team USA, which is in the sixes format, but we'll preview that here on the Lacrosse Rundown as we get closer to that. But we appreciate you guys being here every Tuesday night. It is truly what it is because of you guys and your engagement and your communication in the chat and all of your thoughts. So drop your questions, drop your comments. Let us know what you think of the PLL championship game if you guys watch it on Sunday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern time on ABC. But we appreciate you guys. And
Atlas
Jay?
Cup, Charlotte, are you running out of room for all these trophies and gold medals? I mean, we got to get like an extension built just for all the hardware you're bringing home.
I mean, we'll be back with Team USA in just a couple of weeks, and that is exciting to say because, I mean, last time I was with my teammates was in China, in Chengdu for the World Games, and so can't wait to see them again and get back out on the field for training camp, and then a couple of exhibition games in the Atlas Cup. And we hope you guys are excited for that because it should be a fun one. It'll be at USA headquarters in Baltimore, Maryland. So we are here in the United States competing on American soil.
And someone dropped in the chat a couple of weeks ago, we never followed up on your adventures of Tug of War. Remember, we were like, you got to watch Tug of War. You got to, and you did. You checked it out.
Yes. Honestly, what the craziest part of the whole thing was that we learned how quickly each match is. They can be 12 seconds and that's it. Done. And so it was one day.
What do you mean? Like one team just completely blows the other team out of the water?
Yeah.
I mean, we're used to
we're used to 60-minute lacrosse games, and we're talking to the U.S. Tug of War team and just talking about their journey, their training regimen, and all that took to get to this point. And they were like, "Yeah, we have one day of competition, and matches can go quick." I was mind blown.
Amazing. Did they win? Did U.S. win?
That's a good question, honestly, because they were competing a little bit after us, so we didn't get to see the end, but hopefully they pulled it out. Yeah.
I want to, at some point, we'll have to do a ESPN lacrosse tug of war, Clark, Dana Boyle, Mrs. Birch, get quick.
You know who's going to win, right?
Mrs. Birch.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course,
you know what though? I'll take Rachel DeCecco as my anchor.
Yeah.
I think I got DeCecco. You can take Mrs. Birch.
Man.
That'll be yeah.
Mrs.
Anyway,
Birch
I wanted to that popped into my brain as you were talking about comments in the chat, and I just remember we never closed the loop on the tug of war.
Yeah. Good memory. Good memory.
Yes, this is great, and thank you for everyone. Leave your comments, leave your questions, and this is a great community, and I think everybody needed this conversation again after the just absolutely horrible tragedy that took place in Marquette over the weekend. So we hope we provided a little relief from that and reminded everyone that lacrosse is the medicine game and will continue to be so here on Tuesday nights.